Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today we're going to be breaking down some film on Zay Flowers from the Buffalo Bills and the Ravens game from this past Sunday night. We're going to get straight into it. So, man, the very first play we got right here, we got Zay Flowers being utilized on a jet sweep. So, I love a guy who can be utilized in multiple ways, you know what I mean, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I want a guy that can be able to line up in all positions, whether it be outside the numbers, whether it be inside the numbers, whether it be from a spread formation, whether it be from a condensed formation. And the reason being is because, for one, I love versatility, or for two, it makes it very difficult, especially if he's one of our go-to guys for defenses to be able to key in and try to eliminate him. Because for one, first you have to identify exactly where he's going to be lined up at. So right here, they just pretty much run a jet sweep with Zay Flowers. And obviously, when you got guys like Zay Flowers, those shifty guys, you want to try to get those guys in space, or try to get the ball to those guys in many ways as you can. And obviously, one way would be just handing the ball off to him, whether that be him in Wildcat, whether that be him in a jet sweep like here, or whether that be like just quick throws like off on wide receiver screens and things like that. So we're going to take a look at the running back that was coming out the backfield, because he did a phenomenal job with being able to kind of set the edge and give Zay Flowers some room to work with. So you see they're in a shotgun formation. He's lined up right next to Lamar Jackson, and he just pulls and he gets out to the edge. So he gets the corner, the nickel corner, Johnson right there. And not only when he hit Johnson, he was able to get a 2-for-1, because when he hit Johnson, he ended up knocking him back into the corner from the outside, because the corner on the outside had Bateman beat in terms of leverage. But whenever he was able to hit the nickel corner, Johnson, he ended up knocking him into the outside corner as well, which gave Zay Flowers some room to work with. And then you had the linebacker who was kind of overly pursuing, and Zay Flowers kind of just hit a cutback and was able to kind of bounce that thing back inside and run for some additional yards after the attempted tackle. So right here, we got the Baltimore Ravens lined up in a pistol formation. So they pretty much lined up in a tight condensed formation, meaning that everything is kind of closely together opposed to being spread out. And like I said, that's a trend in the NFL right now, that a lot of teams are running those condensed formations to try to be able to create those pick and rubs and those in man coverage, and to try to be able to create high-low attacks in zone coverage. So right here, this was really a good play call against this defense. So you see Baltimore is in a single high shell, which is a single high safety. And you also will hear people say that it's a closed field, which means it's a safety in the middle, opposed to it being an open field, which would be two safety. So obviously the vulnerabilities of a single high safety is kind of attacking the outside corners and things of that nature. So right here, they pretty much just run like what I would call a clear out route, and they send Bateman on the outside. They send him just on a go ball, right? So they knew that by sending him on the go ball, that the safety, the single high, was going to be his help. And for one, he had him beat too. So he was going to stay over the top of that. So once they cleared him out, and like I say, it pretty much puts him in conflict, right? So if he decides to say, okay, well, I'm gonna take away the crosser with Zay Flowers, then guess what? Now you're gonna hit him over the top with Bateman. And then if he decides to say, well, I'm gonna stay over the top of Bateman, then they're gonna hit him across the middle with Zay Flowers. So it kind of puts that safety in conflict. And Zay Flowers just does a phenomenal job at just winning this route from the beginning. You see that, you have him matched up in the slot. And the thing about Zay Flowers, he's a smaller guy, much quicker, much shiftier. And for bigger corners or for safeties that's trying to be matched up on him one-on-one, that's kind of a hard ask for them to be able to, stick with him in his routes. And like I said, he just went there from the beginning, man. The corner tried to get physical with him at the line of scrimmage, but Zay kind of did a good job at, I would say, the technique where we see defensive linemen, how they're able to get skinny and get around offensive linemen and get to the quarterback and get a sack. That's pretty much what he did. And once he did that, he was able to stack him. And once he had him stacked, it was pretty much over with from there. All right, so right here we got one of my favorite situations, and that's the gotta have it situations. We got a 3rd and 5, and obviously I call it a gotta have it because you got to get this first down in order to move the sticks. And that's exactly what they do right here. So they send Zay Flowers. It looks like they kind of send him in motion to kind of get him a head start. By the way, they're playing off coverage too, and I think I've stated this in a previous video, and I was looking at a video where Tre'Davious White, which is a corner for the Buffalo Bills, was just pretty much talking about that in the NFL, most offensive coordinators don't believe that a team can be successful with running off-man coverage. So they look to try to create ways to put them in situations where they got to be in off coverage to try to exploit it, whether that be motioning a guy to one side of the field and then the corner kind of just bump off and they motion him back, and the corner just never comes back and drops back down to the line of scrimmage to press, and they can take advantage of that. So right here, they kind of get Zay Flowers Flowers going in motion, and he pretty much just runs a in breaking route and was able to make a very difficult catch. But just look at the speed, man. Look at the distance that he's able to control, the distance that he's able to cover in such a short time frame. Like I said, man, for a much bigger corner, he is a nightmare. He is a mismatch nightmare for them. They would much rather deal with a bigger guy, a more physical guy, a guy that they can get their hands on and they want to get their hands on them. But a guy like Zay Flowers, he wants to avoid the hand fighting battle. And he just does a good job at, once again, man, being able to just run away from that corner. And also, too, man, like, this is my thing when I talk about wide receivers, like the thing that I look at. Okay, obviously, yeah, we expect you to be able to make catches when the ball is being put right there on the money. Like, that's not where you get your bread and butter to me. Where you get your bread and butter is where you're able to make those difficult catches like this right here, where you actually have to go to the ground, falling down to the ground to be able to make and secure that catch. These are the plays right here that I look at whenever I'm evaluating a wide receiver to be like, okay, this is what sets him apart, because he's one of those guys that regardless if the ball is underthrown and regardless if the ball is overthrown, he's going to give a valiant effort to be able to try to go get that ball no matter what the situation is. So right here on this play, this was a pretty interesting play because I remember the commentators and they were talking about the draw up of this play. So just watch this. So you have pre-snap Baltimore, where Buffalo was showing a too high safety look pre-snap. So post-snap, they rotate from a too high to a single high. So notice that when they rotate, they blitz the other safety. Now, keep in mind, the Ravens are in shotgun, right? So they're already depth in the backfield by them being in shotgun. So look at the depth of the safeties on this play as well, and look at how far back they are. So just think about blitzing this safety. There's no way that he would have been able to get to that backfield in time to be able to influence what Lamar Jackson was going to do on that play. So that kind of was just a crazy play call right there. And then even when you think about the rotation, so when you have the safety rotate from a too high to a single high, now just look at him where he's at in terms of position. He's having to try to bail to get to that center field position and maintaining his eyes on the quarterback. So in the process of that, Zay Flowers kind of just comes underneath him and he never even sees him. Now, granted, you do have Zay Flowers lined up in the slot. So you got him lined up and you don't man him. You don't press him. You don't get hands on him to try to slow him down and put your safety in a better position. So you got Zay Flowers, who's already a fast guy coming downhill, has not been touched, has been given a free release. That's a hard ask for that safety to have to try to rotate, get center field, but then still maintain the depth on it to where he doesn't get beat over the top. And Zay Flowers just comes across up underneath him, and he never see it coming. Lamar Jackson puts that thing on the money, and gives him an opportunity to be able to try to eat up some yards after the catch. So this was a beautiful setup play. So if you remember, I think the previous clip we looked at Zay Flowers when he did the little jet sweep. So this play, they faked as if they was going to do a jet sweep. So they sent the running back in motion. I think that's the running back. I think that might be the running back. Might be the running back or the tight end. But they sent him in motion as if they were going to run a jet sweep. But then they end up running, and then they end up collapsing the line kind of laterally. Majority of them going to the right. So obviously the defense is going to flow based off of what they're seeing from the offensive linemen and based off of what they've seen from the Baltimore Ravens, and they just come back across and then throw the ball to him and got two offensive linemen out there in space on two safeties, and more times than not, especially those Ravens offensive line, that's going to end up in a touchdown. Now, that's why I say too, man, the thing about the Ravens, man, the Ravens is by far one of the most athletic offensive lines that there is in the National Football League. I stated that in my Derrick Henry video, and I'm going to keep stamping that, man. Just think about the athleticism it takes for those offensive linemen to pull from where they at and go get in space and be able to get out there and get a block on skill play on DBs, right? To be able to get in space and get a block on DBs, and they flatline both of them, and that just allowed for Zay Flowers just to have probably one of the easiest touchdowns that he's ever going to have in his career. All right, man. So this play right here is a prime example of exactly the reason why a lot of teams have been converting over to these condensed type formations right here. So you see you got Baltimore lined up in the I formation. You got Lamar under center. You got the tight end behind him. And then you got Derrick Henry obviously dotting the I. So they run Zay Flowers on a crossing route, kind of like somewhat like a mesh route. So the whole objective of these condensed formations like this is to try to create confusion, to be able to try to cause pick and rub routes in man-to-man coverage, and to be able to try to create high-low opportunities against zone. So right here against man, this shows exactly why a lot of teams like to employ this, because if no communication is had about saying, hey, I have this guy, you have this guy, you have this guy, then you'll run across a situation like similar to what they have here, where you finna have three guys on one person. So you got three guys taking the back out the backfield. Three guys taking him, and nobody accounts for Zay Flowers. So he just works from one side of the formation back across the field to the other. And this is probably, once again, one of the most easiest catch and runs he gonna ever have, because it's just nothing but green space ahead of him, man. So this is the exact reason why a lot of teams like to employ those condensed and those tight formations, to be able to cause this type of confusion. Also, man, Zay Flowers had a darn good game. I know he didn't play in the playoff game, and that probably would have helped having him, just because it would have more options. You know, you possibly could have had a go-to guy for Lamar Jackson outside of Derrick Henry, and then having a guy like Zay Flowers, because of the speed, he can stretch a defense vertically. So you got to kind of account for him as well. You can't just say, okay, we're going to stack the box and take Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson out the equation, because then on the back end, you'll be hurting with Zay Flowers, because we've seen his explosive playmaking ability in this game and throughout his career as well. And like I said, too, man, a lot of what happens with that team offensively goes through that offensive line, man. Lamar's phenomenal. Derrick Henry is phenomenal. Zay is good. But at the end of the day, man, a lot of what we see happening with the Baltimore Ravens works through that offensive line. They are by far probably one of the most, if not the most athletic line in the National Football League, man. The way that these guys can pull, get out in space, and make blocks against defensive backs, it's like poetry in motion, man. But, man, if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a big favor. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure that you click that notification bell, the way you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video.